With Jurgen Klinsmann here in Orlando, Florida. Jurgen, welcome back to the coaching ranks.
Thank you.
Glad to be back on the sidelines?
Oh, I'm always glad to be in the middle of any kind of soccer occupation because it's just it's my world, it's my life since since I started as a professional player at the age of 16, so almost 40 years. I'm involved in different positions. It was the players, the coach, the analyst, whatever. You know, it's fun because you work with people that you enjoy working with, and you have obviously goals to achieve, and you feel the intensity of the game. And when you're back, especially in Europe, in one of the top leagues in the Bundesliga, then I can tell you, you're not getting bored.
It is a crazy competitive Bundesliga this year. I just wonder, in your perspective, having been away for 10 years from the Bundesliga, how much it has changed in that time.
Well, the Bundesliga is in the race with the Premier League. The Premier League sets the tone, to be honest. That everyone knows that in Europe. Then obviously you have the giants in Spain with Barcelona, Real Madrid and Atletico.
Yeah.
Then you have certainly in Germany with Dortmund and Bayern Munich, always teams. And now the rising club with RB Salzburg, RB Leipzig, because they have three of them. With Leipzig. Is very interesting. You have Paris setting a tone, but at the end of the day, the Bundesliga, the Premier League, the Spanish League, the Italian League, we are looking at what happens in the Champions League. That's just a fact. You know, you look at the Champions League, top 10, top 12 teams, and they set the standard, they set the tone. You know, based on what they're doing, we will see in the European Championship this summer, we will see in the Copa America this summer. So the trend is always set by the Champions League. Our goal is to be there one day. In a couple of years down the road, we want to see the name Berlin in the European Champions League.
Has the emergence of smaller teams like Hoffenheim a decade ago and Leipzig now, has that changed? Are you a fan of that? I mean,
yes, I'm a fan of that because it has changed the Bundesliga in a very, very positive way. With Hoffenheim, with Leipzig, you know, with people that bring money into the game, that want to compete internationally. It helped not only the Bundesliga tremendously, it helped the national team tremendously in order to compete, because every country has the big goal to win a European Championship, to win a World Cup. And the foundation of that country will always be the domestic league. So the stronger and the better the domestic league is, with people that help financially to make this league grow, which happened in Hoffenheim, which happened in Leipzig, which happens now in Berlin, and happens in other clubs in other ways. You know, some are individual people, some are big companies that come in. You know, the big giants. You know, if it's an Adidas, a Nike, or sponsors. You know, car company, whatever. It doesn't really matter where the money comes from. If the money comes and flows into that domestic league will rise. It's just a fact. And that's what happens in Germany. Thankfully, it happens.
So right now, Jurgen, second half of this season that you're just about to launch into, with a game against Bayern Munich, as you say, Bayern and Leipzig and Mönchengladbach and Dortmund and Schalke, it's all very tight. Do you think Bayern Munich are going to get it together for the rest of the season, after the first game back, of course? But
I think, you know, Bayern is just. I think it's the club, you know, representing German football worldwide, because what they are capable of is they can juggle different competitions at the same time. They play the Champions League as seriously as they do the Bundesliga, as they do the German Cup. So it's three competitions. England, you have a League Cup even on top of that. But the real big names in Europe, they know how to juggle that, and Bayern is able to do that. You know, the other teams at a certain point, they will lose the Champions League or Europa League, or they will lose their spots in the Bundesliga, like we had, for example, Eintracht Frankfurt doing tremendously well in the Europa League and representing Germany super well, but they dropped now in the table because they couldn't maintain that rhythm Wednesday, Saturday. So that is the challenge. So Bayern Munich will come and attack. If it's Leipzig, if it's Dortmund, whoever is on top with them, it's Mönchengladbach, they will come, they will rise, and who knows, they will pass them or not. I think with Leipzig now we have a team up there that is really, over the last years, they moved kind of one level after another, step by step, similar to a Hoffenheim a few years ago. There's a plan behind. You know, they're very strategic. They are very strategic on the players market. They only go for younger players that they can build, that they can form. Maybe they sell the one or the other for a lot of more money than they bought it for. But there's a strategy behind. That strategy is called Ralf Rangnick.
Yeah.
Over the many years, if it was in Hoffenheim or if it was in it is in Leipzig now, which is fascinating. Can they win the German Bundesliga this year? Yes, they can. Leipzig can win the Bundesliga this year, but Bayern will make it very miserable. Bayern will be at them, they will bite them, they will come, and so does Mönchengladbach, so does Dortmund. So it's a very fascinating race for the title, which was already last year with Dortmund and Bayern, a fascinating race. We are now part of that with Berlin. We need to get safe, we need to survive this season, but then we want to go up there. We want to bite some people too.
An interesting thing from an American perspective is how welcoming Germany has been to North American talent. And with Bayern and Leipzig, there are two players I wanted to ask you about. Alphonso Davies, what do you make of his progress with Bayern?
Absolutely fantastic. The kid, absolutely fantastic. In a short period of time, he picked up the rhythm of that system that is so demanding, you know, that is so high speed, that is so, I mean, physically and mentally, it's a huge change for the kids, and how he managed that is just outstanding. It's wonderful to see.
And Tyler Adams, are you glad to see him back? I know he's had injury.
Absolutely, Tyler from the beginning on, he set the tone. It seemed they had no problem with the transition into the Bundesliga. I think the Bundesliga as a destination really fits American players, American-based players, because, you know, in America, the people are doers. They want to do. They want to. They don't want to react to what other people do. They want to act. They want to be proactive. They want to set the tone. Tyler is a type of a player that always will ask for the ball. He always wants to be in the middle of things. So he established himself very quickly in Leipzig. And if you look at the build-up from Christian Pulisic, you see it similar. You know, he's acting, he's proactive, he's going at people. Then he made the move now to the Premier League. But I think as a destination for top American talent, the Bundesliga is a very, very good spot.
What do you make of Pulisic's progress at the moment? There's a lot of angst amongst US fans that perhaps he isn't playing as much as they would like at Chelsea.
I think he's doing really well. I think he is growing as a person, because, you know, you have to think about the fact that at a very young age he moved already to Dortmund. Yes, the family was with him, but you're in a different country, you learn a different language, you're in a different climate, you know. Then you establish yourself one step at a time from the under-19s and under-23s into the professional team. He did that in a speed that was like, you know, mind-blowing, you know, it got you dizzy. You know, he broke into the US men's national team when I was coaching it. And now came the next big move. I mean, this is a move that only a few players in the world are doing, you know. For that amount of money and attention level worldwide, you move from Dortmund to a club like Chelsea, which is it's one of the big 10 or 12 clubs in the world. And now it takes some time, you know, establish yourself, get to know your teammates, get to know the coaching staff, get to know the fans, the city, and all that stuff. And he's breaking in there as well. He gets his games, he gets his playing time, he puts his stamp on the game. So he's on the right track, and people unfortunately often forget he's very, very young still. You know, he's not 28 or 30, you know, he's a very young player. So there's so much more to come.
We talked about all the young talent that the US have at the moment, and so many of them going to high-profile leagues like the Bundesliga. There seems to be a little bit of a disconnect at the moment with all that talent and the progress of the national team. Jurgen, you know, I've covered the national team for 20 years, and I've never seen this level of disenchantment, even disinterest from the fan base as to where the national team is at the moment. Why is that? I mean, and what can be done about it? I know that's a big subject, but just if you could give us one thing.
Yeah, it's very difficult for me. Obviously, I was in charge for 5.5 years, and I enjoyed it really a lot. And I'm very grateful that I had this opportunity and had these experiences with the team, with the federation, with the fans. It was a fantastic time. I mean, we got through the group of death in Brazil, which nobody ever expected. You know, we went into a Final Four in Copa America in 2016. You know, I helped I don't know how many players to get their move over to Europe to prove themselves. Some made it, some came back in MLS, which is no shame, you know. So they gave it a shot, you know. So what happened now the last 2 or 3 years is very sad. It's really sad because the team belonged into Russia. They belonged into the World Cup. the qualification was pretty much done. Then it happens, the big disaster in Trinidad and Tobago, which nobody ever could imagine, you know. So this threw back the whole national team program for many years. It throws it back, you know, because now there's a lack of belief, there's a lack of enthusiasm, there's a lack of leadership at the end of the day. So it's a very, very difficult job that now Greg Berhalter has on his hands, you know, to rebuild this entire program, which we were actually in a good place. You know, it was progressing. I said, you know, I take that team in Russia into the final 8 or even in the final 4, because it was a building block. It was all laid out. It was all, there was a plan for it. But the plan got interrupted. Then it got even more interrupted when we didn't qualify then for Russia. And it's sad. It's really sad, because it's exactly the opposite what happened, you know, compared to the women's program, you know, which I'm a big fan of too. So hopefully they get it back on track, and I keep really my fingers crossed for Greg that he gets all the support that he needs to get it on the right track.
One last quick thing before we let you go. Thank you for your time. Germany this summer, Euro 2020. Have they done what they needed to do to fix things after 2018?
Yeah, I think Germany needed a big wake-up call. You know, it's a bit part of our culture. When things are going too well, you know, they get complacent, a little bit arrogant maybe, you know, and then they got their lesson in Russia. They got kicked butt and got sent home. They learned out of that. You know, Jogi Löw, fantastic coach, he got his lesson too. He accepted it and he reshaped the team. He made some very, very big cuts in the roster, and the way he did now the qualification for the Euros was top class. They will be in the top 4 in Europe. That's where they belong. The expectations of the German soccer fans is win the European Championship. There's no other expectation. Now that's just part of our history. You know, as 4 times world champions, 3 times European champions, the people expect you to win the tournament. If you finish in the final 4 and the better team beats you in the semi-final, that's accepted. That's no problem. Then you give the opponent, you give them a compliment, give them a hug, and you move on to the next one that you want to win. But expectations for us is always win the thing.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.